Bible prophecy is active and unfolding daily. Zechariah 12, Isaiah 17, Psalm 83, Ezekiel 38. Here is what the LameStream Media is not telling you. Shalom, my friends. Welcome to this week's newscast. Last week, in my Thursday word study video, I pointed to this video about Natan, a 15-year-old Jewish boy who, after feeling ill on the 15th of Tishri, that was September 28th, was pronounced clinically dead for a total of 15 minutes, during which time he was taken up to the Shamayim and shown many things. I want to cover some crucial points of this video today for two reasons. First, because people are misunderstanding some things about what Natan is saying, and secondly, because it is very newsworthy information. Here we see that he has a hard time describing everything he saw in the Shamayim, the heavens. And that's natural, since it's certainly a difficult thing to put into words things that have no real earthly reference points. Then Natan talks about being judged for everything he did during his entire life on earth, and this is true for everyone on Judgment Day. Everyone will receive rewards for every single mitzvot. Mitzvot is Hebrew for good deeds, and punishments for every transgression. Now, it's important to remember that Natan is an unbelieving Jew, and therefore he presently believes in works-based salvation. And oftentimes, while he's trying to convey what he experienced in the Shamayim, some of it is colored by his own understanding, of course. And, of course, it's quite different for believers in Yeshua, because while receiving rewards for each and every mitzvot, good deed, they performed during their lives, their transgressions are covered by the blood of Mashiach, and, rather than punishments, they receive less rewards, which I imagine is punishment enough. Now, salvation is not based on our works, but on the work of Yeshua and Abba Father Yahweh and his indwelling Ruach, his Spirit. However, let's not discount the importance of the works that we do perform during our lives, because we will be rewarded for every mitzvot, and there is much, very much, we can miss out on throughout all of eternity because of what we did or did not do. Now, Natan also points out with great fervency that wearing tzitzit, these are the tassels worn at the four corners of your garment, if you're a believer in what it says in the book of Numbers. He says that wearing tzitzit brings enormous rewards. Now, wearing the tzitzit is a way of saying that you remember Elohim's instructions. You can look at the book of Numbers, chapter 15, verses 37 through 39. Now, here we have to pay attention. This is a Jewish boy who thinks Mashiach has not yet come. He and his people do not recognize Yeshua as the Messiah yet. But Natan has received knowledge about the Messiah, that he is not someone who is dead. And so, in Natan's understanding, if Mashiach is not someone dead, then he must be alive, and therefore he must be here on the earth. And that's where we see him saying, he is here, he must be here because he's not someone who's dead. He's using his own understanding. And, Yeshua, the truth is, Yeshua is not dead, but he's not someone living on the earth. That idea is simply Natan's personal assumption. Again, remember that Natan is a Jew, and he's blinded in part until the fullness of the Gentiles comes in. See Romans chapter 11, verse 25. Now, aside from being raised as a Jew, Natan has no knowledge of Scripture at all. He has not studied the Word at this point at all, although I imagine he's about to begin. Now, here Natan expounds, saying that many people know Yeshua, or the Mashiach, but when he is revealed, everyone will be surprised. It will be a huge surprise, he says. And for the unbelieving Jews, they all know him. And when they, realize that it was and is that man, as they often refer to him, Yeshua, it's going to be a big surprise. Now here he starts prophesying. He says the Gula. Gula is the word for redemption. The Gula, the redemption and the revelation of the Mashiach is going to happen very soon. According to Natan, he says in the coming months, not years, months. He also makes it very clear that all this information is what he learned while he was in the Shamayim. He had no knowledge of such things prior. And as I said, he's not a student of the Word, completely unfamiliar with the prophecies of Isaiah, Zechariah, and Ezekiel. And he's very surprised when he learns that he's quoting them. He says, right now our situation is not good at all. World War III is about to begin very suddenly. And then he says, all 70 nations, everyone will come against Israel. Then he goes on to say that the war is started by Gog, and that Gog is President Obama. Now, many people think that Gog is a reference to Russia, seen in Ezekiel chapter 38. But this is not so. Magog refers to Lower Russia, but Gog literally means high and exalted. And if we look at Amos chapter 7, in the Septuagint only it tells us that Gog is a king of the locust demons. And so, in Ezekiel 38, Gog is a particular man's title, referring to the leader of the coalition against Israel. So, if Obama starts the war in Israel, as Natan says he will, then this prophecy fits perfectly with Scripture. Obama would be possessed by the demon king, Gog, and he would become the leader of a coalition of nations that comes against Israel. Natan says all of 70 nations come against Israel, that everyone wants Israel. And he also says that the worst of it all happens over a period of 2 weeks. Now, I'm always astounded, my friends, that this number 70 nations always comes up, because this number of nations goes back to the story of the Tower of Babel, where Elohim divorced himself from everyone on earth and gave them what they wanted. They were worshiping false gods, Nephilim, demons, and so on. So he gave them over to 70 different languages and 70 false gods to worship. We see that in Genesis chapter 11, and the number of 70 is further clarified. Then Elohim created Israel, his own chosen nation, in Genesis 12. Now, isn't that interesting that we have Elohim's chosen nation, Israel, and then 70 nations that he separated at the Tower of Babel. And now here we are, 4,000 years later. And what's the number of nations coming against Israel? It's those 70. That's just, it's amazing. Now here the rabbi is quoting from the Talmud, saying that acts of kindness will save people. But I ignore that part because the Talmud is just full of the doctrines of rabbis. It's doctrines of men. It is not in line with the word of Elohim. So forget whatever they say from the Talmud. They're just doing their Jewish thing. Here Natan explains that the war begins with everyone fighting against everyone else over Israel. They want Israel's oil. They now, if Obama goes over in there, he starts it, he's probably after the oil. Then, Russia and Iran and Korea and all these other ones, they say, oh, he's going after it. No, we want it. And they all come in and they're all battling each other. Then they all start, all of them together come against Israel after they start fighting each other. And then the IDF manages to keep them at bay, but only for 2 days. And then, Natan says, the IDF is no more, wiped out. He adds that Obama is joined by Iran, Russia, South Korea, the entirety of the United Nations. 70 nations rise against Israel. And as far as ISIS goes, he says they will simply kidnap and torture people. Now, also Natan talks about Har Hatzayatim, that is, the Mount of Olives, splitting in two. And at that very moment, Yeshua will be revealed to everyone. How does it split in two, the rabbi asks? By earthquake, atomic bomb? No, Natan says. 2 dead people rise from the dead. One from here, one from there. And the mount splits in two. And of course, that would be the 2 witnesses we see in the book of Revelation chapter 11. Here, Natan talks about Yeshua again, saying that he's someone who cannot sin. Someone who repented. Now, Yeshua never repented. He never needed to. Again, Natan is making assumptions because he finishes saying he's someone who did not commit any transgressions. Perfectly true. And then Natan is assuming that, he must have repented and then never committed any more transgressions. That's just his fleshly mind working. He was not told those things. Only that Yeshua is without sin and never committed any transgressions. And again, he says it can be someone we actually know very well, and indeed the Jews know Yeshua very well. Lots and lots of people know him, he says. But everyone, meaning all his people, the Jews, will be very, very surprised that he is, of all people, the Mashiach. Then he says that Mashiach will come against Gog, Obama, and will bury him in the land of Israel. Natan doesn't know it, but he's quoting Ezekiel chapter 39, verse 11. Now, I like this part. Natan explains that Yeshua judges people's hearts. Not their outward religious appearance, but their hearts. He says Yeshua can smell the goodness or the rottenness of people's hearts, seeing what is truly inside of each person. just as he did when he walked on this earth 2,000 years ago. And also the word tells us no one is capable of judging a heart except Elohim. We think we know people, and then something happens and we're like in shock. Gee, I thought, this, that, and the other thing. No, we are not capable of knowing anyone's heart. And this is something I'm always pointing out in my word study videos, that a relationship with Elohim is something from the heart, a daily walk, and has nothing to do with churches or religions. I always point out, the Father's name is Yahweh. His Son's name is Yeshua. And however, if you refer to them as God or Lord or Jesus or Jehovah, Abba forbid, he understands, he's not looking at that outward stuff. He's looking at people's hearts. So no matter what they call him, he knows if they love him or not. Now, after making it clear that Natan has no knowledge of Scriptures, the Rabbi quotes from Ezekiel 39:11, which reads, "On that day I will give Gog a burial place in Israel." And then he quotes from Zechariah chapter 14, verse 4, which reads, "His feet, Yeshua, shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem, on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall be split in two from the east to the west, a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south." And in total surprise, Natan says, is that really what's written? Then the rabbi asks, how will we know when this has started? And Natan replies, it already started on September 11th, 2014, last year. The screenshot says 2015, but Natan clarified that he meant to say it started September 11th last year. And he goes on to say that we're not yet feeling the whole of it because Elohim will not bring it at the very beginning. He says what will happen is that one day, very soon, everything will explode. Something will happen to cause everything to escalate, and we will know instantly that we are in a full-blown war, and everyone will be saying, World War III has begun. You'll see this graphic at the end of today's video, as well as a text link in the Show More section beneath this video. You can click on that if you want to go watch Natan's video for yourself. Now, some personal thoughts to share. On Monday, November 23rd, Russian President Vladimir Putin met with Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Khamenei told Putin there was a Western conspiracy that he said is dangerous to both Iran and Russia, and Putin announced that Russia would resume exporting nuclear technology to Iran. You see, they're already like, watch out for those guys. Let's join up together, and of course, they're both lying to each other at the same time. But now Russia has also contracted to supply Iran with S-300 surface-to-air missile systems. And Iran has allowed Russian missiles and strategic bombers in the past month to fly through its airspace en route to Syria, because it serves Iran's purposes as well. Meanwhile, Turkish fighter jets shot down a Russian warplane that Turkey said had strayed into its airspace on Tuesday, November 24th. And Putin gave statements that made it very clear, at least to him, that America provided Turkey with the information it needed to perform that attack. You see, it's growing already. This, on one hand they say, we're together fighting against ISIS, but then on the other hand they're like, watch out for him, and he did it, and That's Satan, man, the author of confusion. It's going to get crazier and crazier. And then Germany is planning, after approval from Parliament, to send 1,200 soldiers to fight against ISIS in Syria. That's what they say the reason is. The German Air Force will provide 4 to 6 Tornado jets for reconnaissance that could be stationed at air bases in Jordan and Turkey. And a German frigate would also accompany France's Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier. All the military actions we see happening in the Middle East are not exactly what they may appear to be, my friends. America and the Western countries are funding ISIS in many ways to promote their own agendas, as is Russia and every other player in the game. And, as young Natan pointed out, they are all really vying for Israel's oil and to become the one world power. No matter, we can know exactly how everything is going to play out and how it's going to end, simply by knowing Bible prophecy. Now, if all of this stuff is creating fear in your heart, if you're worried, geez, what's going to happen? And if these things scare you, it's primarily because your relationship with Elohim and His Word needs to grow bigger in you. I mean, my relationship with Elohim, my understanding of His Word is, it's large, I've been doing it for a long time. And even as a young boy, my whole life, for some reason or another, my sights have always been on eternity and the Malchut, the kingdom of Elohim, not on my life in this world. My interests have not been, and certainly are not, focused on anything of this world. So when I see these things escalating and I think, boy, World War III, all I think of is, hot dog, we're going home. We can be done with this crazy world of darkness and confusion. And every day, forever and ever and ever and ever, I will never know anything but joy. No more irritations, no more stumbling, no more struggling, no more jerks. Forgive me. People irritating you, doing stupid things. All of that's gone. So, and that's eternity. That's not 70 or 100 years. That's, gazillions of years. So I'm encouraged when I see all these things happening, also because, this is Bible prophecy. These prophecies have been dead in the water, so to speak, for hundreds and thousands of years. And now they're all starting to flower. And it's like, boy, on one hand, I wonder why people don't realize how true the word of Elohim is. And on the other hand, it's like, this is great, Satan and his world of darkness is going to be done away with. So if, you're experiencing fear over all of these events coming into play, just educate yourself more in the Word. Educate yourself more about His kingdom and eternity and the joy of being with your family and all your loved ones, including those that have passed away. The joys that you will have forever. Focus on that. Now let's turn to wars and rumors of wars. Isaiah 17:1 tells us that Damascus will become a heap of ruins. Look at these pictures of Damascus before and after. And Damascus, aside from being one of the oldest cities in the world, has never been destroyed at any time in previous history. Bible prophecy about the end times is unfolding at a rapid pace. Well, on Tuesday, November 24th, from the Star Online, the Egyptian branch of ISIS claimed responsibility for a bombing that killed at least 7 people in a hotel in North Sinai, where judges overseeing a parliamentary election were staying. A militant tried to drive a car bomb into the hotel in Al-Arish before security forces opened fire, causing the car to explode. Then on Wednesday, November 25th, Al-Ahram, Egypt, tells us that last Wednesday, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu ordered the Federal Service for Military Technical Cooperation to respond rapidly to an Egyptian request to buy large amounts of advanced weapons from Russia. What's that all about? Russian media reported earlier that Russia may sign a deal with Egypt for the delivery of a Kamov Ka-52K helicopters, and last week the two countries signed a deal to build 4 third-generation nuclear reactors in Egypt. Then from Pravda, Russia, Russian President Putin announced Moscow's plans to deploy the state-of-the-art S-400 air defense system in Syria. The deployment of the S-400 could very well allow Russia to control Syrian airspace. The S-400 system has already been delivered to Syria and deployed at the Maymim air base. Then on Thursday, November 26th, from the Jordan Times, Iraqi forces have cut Daesh's last supply line into the western city of Ramadi by seizing a key bridge. Capture of the Palestine Bridge, straddling the Euphrates River in northwestern Ramadi, means Iraqi forces have the city surrounded. They will now move to clear the city of the militants, one neighborhood at a time. And on Sunday, November 29th, from the Jerusalem Post, the Israel Air Force attacked Syrian army and Hezbollah targets in the area around Kalamun in Syria. The Lebanese media outlet Al-Mustaqbal reported that there were dead and wounded Hezbollah fighters in the attack, which hit the area close to the Lebanese border. On Monday, November 30th, from Metro News UK, Russian airstrikes may have killed more than 40 people and wounded dozens more in Syria as jets bombed the rebel-controlled town of Ariha in northwest Syria, with the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights claiming at least 60 people were killed and wounded in the attack. Now turning to our Intifada update. On Monday, November 23rd, from the Times of Israel, Israel is planning new security measures in response to the escalation of Palestinian terror attacks, including barring family members of terrorists from entering Israel and deploying more troops to safeguard terror hotspots. Israel is also looking into the legality of deporting inciters of violence from the West Bank to Gaza. Then from Haaretz, an Israeli soldier was killed and another was wounded in a stabbing attack at a West Bank gas station. Another woman was injured during the attempt to stop the Palestinian attacker who was shot and killed, and a Palestinian man tried to stab a soldier at a West Bank IDF army base. Soldiers shot and killed the terrorist. Then on Tuesday, November 24th, from Ynet News, a Palestinian terrorist hit a border police officer and 2 IDF soldiers with a vehicle at Tapua Junction in the West Bank. The terrorist was shot and wounded. On Wednesday, November 25th, from Haaretz, an Israeli in his 20s was seriously wounded in a stabbing attack at the Al-Fawar Junction southwest of Hebron in the West Bank. According to initial reports, a Palestinian man came out of his car armed with a knife and stabbed the Israeli before being shot by Israeli security forces. Then on Thursday, November 26th, from Ynet News, a 51-year-old Palestinian man drove to the Tepuach Junction in the West Bank. Then he ran at Israeli soldiers while brandishing a knife. The troops opened fire and killed him. Friday, November 27th, from Ynet News, 2 IDF soldiers were wounded in a car ramming attack outside of Jerusalem in the morning after a Palestinian attempted to run them over at a bus stop. Members of a civilian search and rescue team who were coming back from a training session witnessed the attack and shot the driver. Then a Palestinian rammed his car into 6 Israeli soldiers near Hebron in the West Bank in the afternoon. The attacker was shot by army forces on the scene and neutralized. Then on Sunday, November 29th, a Palestinian from Nablus in the West Bank stabbed a border policeman in the neck near the Damascus Gate in Jerusalem's Old City before he was shot and killed. And then later, a Palestinian man from Hebron stabbed a woman in the back at a bus stop in Jerusalem, was later apprehended. So to recap, ISIS bombed a hotel in North Sinai by driving a car bomb into the hotel. Egypt is looking to buy large amounts of advanced weapons from Russia, and Russia may comply with a delivery of Kamov Ka-52K helicopters. Further, Russia and Egypt signed a deal to build 4 third-generation nuclear reactors in Egypt. Moscow has delivered and deployed the S-400 air defense system in Syria. Iraqi forces cut Daesh's last supply line into the western city of Ramadi by seizing the Palestine Bridge. The Israeli Air Force attacked Syrian army and Hezbollah targets in Syria. Russian jets bombed the town of Riha in northwest Syria. An Israeli soldier was killed and another was wounded in a stabbing attack at a West Bank gas station. A Palestinian man tried to stab a soldier at a West Bank IDF army base. A Palestinian terrorist hit a border police officer and 2 IDF soldiers with a vehicle. A Palestinian man came out of his car armed with a knife and stabbed an Israeli in his 20s. A Palestinian man was killed when he ran at Israeli soldiers while brandishing a knife. 2 IDF soldiers were wounded in a car ramming attack at a bus stop outside of Jerusalem. A Palestinian rammed his car into 6 Israeli soldiers in the West Bank. Another Palestinian man stabbed a border policeman in the neck near Damascus Gate. And a Palestinian man stabbed a woman in the back at a bus stop in Jerusalem. And that, my friends, is what the LameStream Media is not telling you. Abba willing, I'll see you here again next week. Until then, stay safe. Shalom.
Crowded rooms, I need more space than I consume. Enough is time alone with you, underneath the naked moon, sharing confidential moods and making chatter. Mockingbird nocturnal sings notations of eternal things, entering the quantum breeze, flying not for want of wings. He lights his gaze on you and me, simply because we matter.